I'll call them up. House will come to order. Members, please take your seats. Sergeant Arms.
The House is now in session. All persons not entitled to privileges on the floor, please retire to the gallery.
The members will rise and be led in prayer by the Reverend Benjamin J. Sprouse, Associate Pastor, Memorial Baptist Church in Stanton, and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, led by the gentleman from Colonial Heights, Mr. Cox.
I am one of your citizen soldiers, a civilian pastor, and also a military chaplain in the Virginia Army National Guard. As such, I've donned the uniform alongside our citizen soldiers of the Commonwealth and deployed with them to foreign lands to combat on multiple occasions. I want you to know I've seen it. When Virginians are called upon to serve and give all they have, they do well. They do exceedingly well, just as Virginians always have. It's in this spirit of service I offer this prayer. Let us pray. Lord, hear our prayers. Inasmuch as the sun rises and the sun sets, as we move about the earth under our feet, as we breathe the air that surrounds us, every step and every breath is a step and breath of freedom. Lord, we give a thanksgiving for the actions and lives of those that have gone before us, and for your inspiration of a heritage of freedom of which they sought, of which we now enjoy and sustain. Lord, we ask for a blessing on this day, as it has begun, as it will pass. It may the tasks of this day not pass without purpose and significance. Lord, as much as you have placed the desire in each of our hearts for that which is eternal, that which is good, to act justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with our God. Lord, may we live and act with such a virtue. Oh, Lord, be with us. Lord, hear our prayers. We pray in the name of our Lord. Amen.
Amen. To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The members will answer the roll call by indicating their presence on the electronic voting board. Clerk will close the roll.
Mr. Speaker, a quorum is present.
Pursuant to House Rule 3, I've examined and approved the Journal of the House of Delegates for January 27, 2016. Motions and resolutions under Rule 39 are now in order. Does the clerk have any announcements or communications?
Not at this time, Mr. Speaker.
The gentleman from Danville, Mr. Marshall.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise for an introduction and announcement.
Gentleman has the floor.
Thank you, sir. Today we are joined in the gallery, if they will please stand up, the Virginia Horse Council. This is the voice of expanding horse industry in the Commonwealth of Virginia. The council is a nonprofit organization formed by the Virginia Horsemen for Virginia horsemen, horsewomen, and of course horses. The council represents all breeds and disciplines from thoroughbred racing to fox hunting to show jumping and trail riding. The council collaborates with other areas of the agricultural community and helps facilitate communications between members of the equine industry and state and federal agencies. Members of the Virginia Horse Council are with us today. They are led by my constituent, President Ann Walker, and other board members. And tonight, next door over in Old City Hall, there's a reception for the Virginia Horse Council from 5:30 to 7:30, so please come on over. So let's please give this good group of Virginians a warm welcome.
Pleased to have the members with us today, and thank you for taking the time to visit at the Capitol. The gentleman, Prince William, Mr. Lingenfelder.
Mr. Speaker, rise for an introduction.
Gentleman has the floor.
Mr. Speaker, we are very honored this morning to have joining with us here on the chamber floor my good friend Mike Farris, who is a well-known pioneer in the homeschool movement. Mike is a constitutional attorney. He's a scholar and author. Many of you know him. And he's also the founder and president of the Homeschool Legal Defense Association and Patrick Henry College. He is also the co-founder of the Convention of the States Project. And as you know, we will have HJ3 before the body, hopefully soon, so that you might be able to be on the right side of that vote and vote it out this year and send it to the Senate. But we are particularly honored that Mike has brought a very distinguished American with him today, former United States Senator from Oklahoma, Tom Coburn. Senator Coburn is a 68-year-old grandfather of three, or a father of three, grandfather of 8. He represented the state of Oklahoma, the great state of Oklahoma, where I did my artillery training at Fort Sill, the 2nd District of the United States House of Delegates District for 6 years, and went on to serve in the as Oklahoma's U.S. Senator for 10 years. He is a consummate citizen legislator. Senator Coburn left public office after a combined 16 years serving in the U.S. House and Senate, respectively. He is known as Dr. No in the Senate when it came to violating the budget or the enumerated powers of the Constitution. And he took a firm stand in favor of what our founders believe. As a practicing physician, Dr. Coburn has delivered over 4,000 babies, and he continues his commitment to children by being a senior advisor on the Convention of the States project to restore the balance between the federal government and the states, as well as between the branches of federal government. Mr. Speaker, please, I would ask the House to join me in welcoming Senator Coburn and Mike Farris.
The gentlewoman from Bedford, Ms. Byron.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise for a request.
Gentleman may state it.
I'd like to request that the Journal reflect that my seatmate from Prince William is absent due to pressing personal business.
Journal will so reflect. The gentleman from Stanton, Mr. Bell.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise for an introduction.
Gentleman has the floor.
Mr. Speaker, ladies and gentlemen of the House, the opening prayer this morning was delivered by Reverend Major Ben Sprouse, the Associate Pastor of Memorial Baptist Church in Stanton. He currently simultaneously serves as Associate Pastor and the Command Chaplain of the 29th Infantry Division, Virginia Army National Guard, headquartered at Fort Belvoir, Virginia. Major Sprouse, in his 16 years of service at Memorial Baptist, has led countless outreach missions, inspired a generation of youth and young people and their families in the faith and practice through local, statewide, national, and international outreach missions. He has served, has been deployed. I believe that he is the most deployed chaplain in the Virginia Army National Guard. He is holder of, he has been involved in joint multinational operations, receiving 2 meritorious service medals and a Bronze Star. I would ask the House to join me in giving Major Sprouse and his wife Sarah a warm House welcome.
The gentleman from Newport News, Mr. Yancey.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise for an introduction and a point of personal privilege.
Gentleman has the floor.
About the introduction, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Speaker, joining us in the gallery today are students from Christopher Newport University and their staff. I would encourage them to stand up. Mr. Speaker, members of the House, these students from Christopher Newport University and their coordinator are here visiting and learning about the legislative process in hopes of starting a collegiate legislative program on the campus of Christopher Newport University. Along with the gentlelady from Newport News, Delegate Price, I would ask the members to please give them a warm House welcome.
Pleased to have the students from CNU with us today.
And Mr.
Gentleman
Speaker,
from Newport News.
Mr. Speaker, rise for a point of personal privilege.
Gentleman may proceed.
Mr. Speaker, members of the House, today marks the 130th anniversary of Collis Huntington's founding of the Chesapeake Dry Dock and Construction Company. It is better known as the Newport News Shipbuilding, a division of Huntington Ingalls Industries. The Newport News Shipyard has played an integral role in the legacy of the United States Navy in World War I, World War II, and the Cold War. In 2016, the shipyard continues the tradition of naval supremacy with the Virginia class of submarines and the Ford class aircraft carrier. These ships continue to defend our nation and protect our freedom. The shipyard is the largest industrial employer in the Commonwealth with over 20,000 employees, including many who are second, third, fourth, and fifth generation shipbuilders. And the shipyard has also launched the careers of many former employees who went on to start new businesses and hire new employees, like my grandfather, John P. Yancey Jr. In honor of the Newport News Shipyard's 130th anniversary, I have introduced today House Resolution 220, and along with the gentlelady from Newport News, Delegate Price, I would encourage members to sign on. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Gentleman from Colonial Heights, Mr. Cox.
Mr. Speaker, I move the House stand in recess until 12:40.
Gentleman from Colonial Heights, Mr. Cox, moves the House stand in recess until 12:40. As many as favor that motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. Motion is agreed to. The House stands in recess until 12:40.
The House Republican Caucus will meet immediately upon the recess in House Room 1, and the Legislative Black Caucus will meet in House Room 2.
The House will come to order. Members, please take your seats. The gentleman from Fairfax, Ms. Murphy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise for an introduction.
Gentlewoman has the floor.
I am very proud to have with us in the gallery today Sarah Cochran, who's the Virginia State Director for Emerge USA, and members of her Emerge USA Leadership Program. Would they stand, please? Come on, stand up there. Emerge USA seeks to engage, educate, and empower Muslim, South Asian, and Arab American communities through educational events, voter initiatives, and leadership development for the purpose of creating a community of equitable, knowledgeable, and motivated leaders. This Emerge Leaders program builds a pipeline of well-informed, diverse, and well-prepared individuals to ensure they're ready to serve our communities as civic leaders. We're very proud of what they're doing. At the end of their 6-month program, they get internship opportunities in government and civic organizations to use the skills they're learning right now. We're proud to have them with us today, and I hope you'll give them a warm house welcome.
Pleased to have the visitors with us today and hope you enjoy your time in the Capitol. The gentleman from Fairfax, Ms. Fillerquine.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Speaker. I rise for a point of personal privilege and 2 introductions.
Gentleman has floor.
Thank you very much. Mr. Speaker, ladies and gentlemen, from all over Virginia today, we have representatives of the Virginia for the Arts joining us in Richmond and around the Capitol. I'm not sure if they're here. If you are, please stand. Thank you. Virginians for the Arts are here to advocate for increased funding for the arts organizations of Virginia and promoting their Arts Build Communities campaign. Virginia is home to thousands of art-related businesses, including museums, galleries, performing arts, organizations, theaters, films, radio, TV, videography, photography, arts schools, graphic arts, and design companies. The arts industry in Virginia creates jobs, as we all know, promotes tourism, plays a key role in community building, and encourages the intellect and creativity of all of the children around the Commonwealth. As chair of the General Assembly's Arts Caucus, I know the important role that the arts play in the lives of so many of us in the Commonwealth. I'll be reaching out to all of my colleagues in the near future. We'll be having a couple meetings of the Arts Caucus and look forward to working with these folks as well. I ask you all my colleagues, to join me in a warm house welcome.
Gentleman from Fairfax.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Also joining us today in the gallery, I ask them to stand, are members of Leadership Fairfax from Fairfax County. Founded in 1987 by the Fairfax County Chamber of Commerce, Leadership Fairfax, a nonprofit organization, connects diverse leaders to one another and to community engagement opportunities across sectors and experience. Leadership Fairfax's mission is to educate, to prepare, to inspire, and to connect leaders to serve and strengthen our community, with the vision towards community trustees who are individually and collectively responsible for the strength of Fairfax County. Leadership Fairfax programs increase leaders' knowledge and perspectives of key local and regional challenges. They provide an environment for challenging and strategic conversations, and they surely inspire a lot of collaboration, inclusion, and unselfish service to the Northern Virginia region. I'd be remiss as alum myself if I didn't say, of course, of the best class of '01, if I ask all my colleagues here in the House to please give them a warm house welcome. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Point of personal privilege.
Gentlewoman has floor.
Yeah. Mr. Speaker, ladies and gentlemen of the House, earlier this month, I was privileged to attend the unveiling of the portrait of Justice Jane Maram Roush at the Fairfax Bar Association. There were many in attendance that day, and I was truly touched by the respect shown for Justice Roush by so many in the legal community, most of whom had known her for years and years on the circuit court. That day, I spoke with attorneys from both sides of the aisle, with basically each and every one of them telling me that they hoped that Justice Roush would remain in her position on the Supreme Court. It was no surprise to me that Justice Roush had bipartisan admiration, given her intellect and fairness that she is known during her days on the circuit court. I truly witnessed the admiration on the day her portrait was unveiled. It was a special day. Mr. Speaker, ladies and gentlemen, I am here speaking in my sincere hope that Justice Roush will remain on the Supreme Court. I would like to say that my words today are not meant to convey anything less than the utmost respect for Judge Alston. However, hopefully today, or hopefully very soon, we will be taking a vote that could lead to the removal of Justice Roush from the Supreme Court. I am afraid that if the actions of this body today lead to the removal of Justice Roush from the Supreme Court, that it would cause lasting harm to the judiciary. Among the many reasons I could list, I could fear that it could cause some of the best candidates that we have around the Commonwealth to think twice before applying for future vacancies on the state Supreme Court. For that matter, for judicial openings at any and every level. Last July, I was incredibly proud to stand with the governor and other colleagues for the announcement that Judge Roush would be appointed to the state Supreme Court. Not only was it special to be there as a member of this body, but also for me as an attorney and also as somebody who was clerked for a judge. Prior to her appointment, I was proud to join many of my colleagues in signing a bipartisan letter of support to Governor McAuliffe, recommending Judge Roush for the open position of Supreme Court Justice. In that letter, it was noted, in 2009, during consideration for the Supreme Court of Virginia, she received the highest rankings of every state bar association. I appreciate the fact that Justice Roush was interviewed yesterday and that she was certified and qualified for the current position that she holds today as Justice in the Supreme Court. We now have an immensely qualified sitting Supreme Court Justice that was originally appointed with bipartisan support, and the most impeccable credentials stands before us for approval for continuing to serve as a Supreme Court Justice. The alternative is that Justice Roush could be the first justice to be removed from the Virginia Supreme Court since 1900. My hope is that we will find a way, Mr. Speaker and ladies and gentlemen, to keep Justice Roush on the court and to continue her service of distinction and true honor to the Commonwealth of Virginia, as she has done for so many years. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
The gentleman from Virginia Beach, Mr. Solly.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise for a request.
Gentleman may say it.
On page 9 of the calendar, can House Bill 825 go by for the day?
Without objection, House Bill 825 by for the day. The gentleman from Virginia Beach, Mr. Taylor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise for 2 introductions, please.
Gentleman has the floor.
Ladies and gentlemen, tourism is one of Virginia's most powerful industries. It provides instant revenue for the state. Tourism generates billions of dollars in tax revenue and supports hundreds of jobs, thousands of jobs in Virginia. The Virginia Restaurant, Lodging, and Travel Association, if you're up in the balcony, please stand up, serves as a unified voice in the restaurant, lodging, travel, and hospitality industries. They promote interest and advocate on behalf of restaurants and hospitality-oriented businesses across Virginia for 80 years. I'd ask that the members please give a warm welcome to the Virginia Restaurant, Lodging, and Travel Association.
Gentleman from Virginia Beach.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Virginia National Guard Commonwealth Cadets, if you're up there, please stand up.
I think they're with the hospitality people.
They're doing push-ups in the back, Mr. Speaker. The mission of the Virginia National Guard Commonwealth Challenge Youth Academy is to intervene in the lives of 16 to 18-year-old teenagers by providing the values, skills, education, and self-discipline needed to produce responsible, productive citizens, and to do so in a highly structured learning environment.
Mr. Speaker, I did some push-ups with them myself. I will tell you that they're in shape, and I will also promise you that a program like this will change the trajectory of their lives for the good forever. So with that, I would love to have a warm welcome from the body for the Virginia National Guard Commonwealth Challenge Cadets. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Gentleman from Culpeper, Mr. Freitas.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise for the purpose of an introduction.
Gentleman has the floor.
Thank you. Today is Home Education Association of Virginia's annual day at the Capitol, when homeschooling parents and students from all areas of the Commonwealth visit our Capitol to learn about state government. According to the Virginia Department of Education, more than 38,000 students are now being homeschooled in Virginia, which represents a 9% growth since last year and a 45% increase since 2002. Homeschoolers come from diverse backgrounds and socioeconomic levels, and the success of homeschooling has been documented by multiple research studies. And I want to say that as a homeschool parent myself, I'm always thrilled when the homeschoolers come out, because the number one question we all get as homeschoolers is, what about socialization? So when you see them coming around the Capitol today, you know we educate at home, but we do occasionally get out to see everybody. So if we could extend a warm house welcome to our homeschool educators.
The gentleman from Prince William, Mr. Marshall.
A point of personal privilege, Mr. Speaker.
Gentleman has the floor.
Mr. Speaker, this fall, a number of us saw signs in Northern Virginia. It says, stop $17 tolls on I-66. Now notice, this doesn't say inside the Beltway. It doesn't say outside the Beltway. It says, stop $17 a day tolls on I-66. Well, we're at a crossroads here in the Commonwealth. Unfortunately, the governor and the Secretary of Transportation have pitted Northern Virginia against the rest of the Commonwealth, and they're basically asserting if tolls aren't put on 66, why, you might not even be able to build a dirt road down in Virginia Beach. Maybe not that extreme, but clearly the message is there. Divide and conquer. I don't think that is the way that we should be operating in this Commonwealth. So let's deal with where can you get some of the money. The governor's proposing $50 million be given to Dulles Airport to buy down tickets. I would suggest a better use for that money in Northern Virginia would be to allocate it to fixing 66, especially the portion that is inside the Beltway, roughly from Route 29 to Washington Street in Falls Church, or just beyond that where the toll road meets I-66. Additionally, the Secretary has acknowledged that it'll cost $50 million to set up the toll gantries. Well, that's $100 million. Fixing the portion of the road that I just mentioned will cost $122 million, and this is largely responsible for the backups on 66. Where else can we get money? Well, Mr. Speaker, this is a January 19th publication of VDOT. They said there's new revenue of $1.22 billion available for construction through 2021. Now, Mr. Speaker, on January 7th, 4 members of this body and the other body sent a letter to His Excellency the Governor. We asked questions. For example, we were concerned about the lack of candor and transparency. One of the questions we asked is, why were the overhead I-66 message boards never used to inform I-66 commuters about the toll roads? Well, I got a response this morning, not really an answer. This is from Nick Donahue, who works for the Secretary. It says, Delegate Marshall, the message signs can hold 18 characters per line, including spaces, and they have 3 lanes. I think he means lines, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, if you count the characters for tolls on 66, question mark, C, transform 66, that's 27 characters on 2 lines. You have 1 more line to inform the public. Now, on October 21st, a number of us, public officials and members of the public, met in western Prince William County at a VDOT-sponsored meeting. We wanted to ask questions of VDOT. Well, nobody was allowed to ask questions, neither the public nor public officials. So they basically held a dog and pony show, but nobody could question them. If you wanted to make a comment, you had to go over in the corner and basically go to confession to somebody with a little transcriber. The next day, I asked a VDOT representative at another school in Western Prince William why the I-66 message boards, lit up signs, and we spent about $30 million on these, were never used. She had no answer but promised to take the question higher up. Mr. Speaker, still with 4 of us asking these questions of the governor and going back to at least to October, we have yet to receive an answer. I would suggest there's an intent to keep the public underinformed. In 2013, VDOT indicated, and we wrote this question to the governor, it will be problematic to toll existing I-66 lanes inside the Beltway. We asked, which agency of the Commonwealth decided to toll existing lanes anyway? Who attended such meetings? What are their affiliations? Please provide all relevant documents, Mr. Speaker. Again, no answer of any kind. Next question. In 2013, VDOT indicated that any I-66 tolls, if imposed, would range from 15 to 20 cents per mile. We pointed out drivers on the Pennsylvania and New Jersey turnpikes spend only 9 cents a mile. Mr. Governor, can you explain why the Commonwealth intends to charge roughly 95 cents a mile, $17 a day to use I-66 inside the Beltway during high drive times? Again, who is responsible for the decision? Please provide all relevant documents. Mr. Speaker, we've received no answer to this. No documents, no answer. Next question. Considering that imposing $4,000 a year per year for I-66 tolls inside the Beltway will have greater and more adverse consequences on lower-income drivers, please explain how your plan treats all commuters equally. Mr. Speaker, we got no answer to that. Now, what else is problematic about this project? VDOT is suggesting that we reduce from 4 to 3 the number of general purpose lanes. That's not going to help congestion. That's going to make it worse. There are 4 lanes that can be used roughly from Route 29 to the Beltway, one of which is a shoulder lane, ultimately called an auxiliary lane, which is used during high drive times or when traffic is congested. There's little green lights down there. That will be gone, Mr. Speaker, and I never really got a straight answer about that, but I've concluded from that. Another letter that I sent on October 28th, VDOT's existing 2013 study indicated that conversion of existing lanes on I-66 to toll lanes do not assume that existing lanes will be tolled and were not analyzed. This is the quote from VDOT. The tolling scenarios assessed for this high-level Tier 1 tolling analysis do not assume that existing lanes would be tolled, but rather that tolls would be applied to new roadway lanes, with the most likely scenario resulting from tolls applied as part of a hot lane system that allows 3+ occupant vehicles to paying the toll. They talked about having to generate public support for this. Policy issues with tolling existing capacity on an interstate would need to be addressed. Potential policy issues with tolling Dulles Airport users, public support for tolling existing capacity would need to be addressed. Now, Mr. Speaker, this is a results of a survey which was conducted on behalf of VDOT by the Southeastern Institute of Research. One of our members here actually responded to the survey. At no place in this 85-page report, when they talk about tolls, do they identify the cost of the tolls. Now, that's very deceptive, Mr. Speaker. Moreover, when asked about this was a 20-minute telephone survey of I-66 users, one of whom is sitting within not arm's distance, but within snowball distance of me right now, Mr. Speaker, conducted from July 7th to August 4th, 2014. When they were explained what the plan was, This was the response. This is on page 47. When asked about their rating of the I-66 plan, this is the answer. 23% were neutral, 30% were positive, 47% were negative, Mr. Speaker. Now, how's that for gaining public support? Moreover, on page 45 of this survey, this is what they said. I'm sorry, this is what they omitted. When they talked about the alleged improvements, there was no mention that HOV3 would operate on the 2 designated lanes 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The public was not told about that. Mr. Speaker, the public was also not told that the shoulder lane, which can be used right now and can be used even in general drive time between 9:30 and 11, which I do sometimes, will not survive. On page 87, 69% of respondents said they don't feel they have the amount of information they need about I-66. Mr. Speaker, I am fearful that an effort will be made to steamroll some measure through here which does not take these concerns into account and which may leave loopholes for tolling portions of I-66 which should not be done. And in any case, the assumption here is no tolls on 66. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise for the purpose of an announcement.
The gentleman has the floor.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, ladies and gentlemen, there are numerous community colleges visiting us today. And at this time, I would like to ask the staff and students of Southside, Danville, Central Virginia, Rappahannock, and J. Sargent Reynolds Community College to please stand. And I ask the body to join me in giving them a warm house welcome. Thank you.
Delighted to have the students with us today. The gentleman from Spotsylvania, Mr. Cole.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Rise for an introduction and a motion.
Gentleman has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today, I don't know if they're still in the gallery or not, we have a group from Germanna Community College, the premier college of the Virginia Community College system. And I would like us to give a warm welcome to President Dr. David Sam, Mr. Greg Calvert, Vice President and General Manager of the Cloak Group, and former Navy Captain Ted Hantz, Vice President of Basic Commerce Industries. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Also have a motion on page 4 of the calendar. May House Bill 562 go to the regular calendar?
Without objection, House Bill 562 to the regular calendar. The gentleman from Fairfax, Ms. Corey. Gentlewoman from Fairfax, Ms. Corey.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise for a request and an announcement.
Gentlewoman has the floor.
Thank you. My request is perhaps a motion. I would like to have Bill 252 on page 2 to go by for the day.
Without objection, House Bill 252 by for the day.
Thank you. And my announcement is an invitation for all members of this body to come to conference room 7 West on February 1st. You should have gotten an invitation. I have asked a number of groups representing intellectually disabled and physically disabled adults to bring their artwork to that room, and we are having a grand opening on February 1st from 10 to 11, and the artists from ARC and the Independence Center and L'Arche, which is a housing organization, will be there. And we'll also have refreshments. So please come by, 7 West. Thank you.
The gentleman from Arlington, Mr. Lopez.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise for introduction.
Gentleman has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Virginia Coalition of Latino Organizations, VACALAO, is a coalition of nonprofit organizations serving and supporting the Latino and immigrant communities in Virginia. Since its foundation in 2002, VACALAO has been advocating for the rights of Latino immigrants across the Commonwealth. It works to empower, secure equal treatment, opportunity, and representation for all Latinos. VACALAO's mission is to serve as a working alliance among organizations in Virginia that serve or support the interests of the Latino communities in order to empower the community and secure equal treatment, equal opportunity, and equal representation. Bienvenidos a Richmond y esta Asamblea General. I'd ask all the members of VACALAO to stand and be recognized. Give them a warm house welcome. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, and we're delighted to have the guests with us today. Gentleman from Botetourt, Mr. Head.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise for an introduction and for a motion.
Gentleman has the floor.
Mr. Speaker, joining us in the gallery today are some students from the Department of Gerontology School of Allied Health Professions at Virginia Commonwealth University. If they would stand. These students are helping to learn how to promote optimal aging for Virginians and to help make Virginia communities into places that older Virginians can age well. Currently, we have almost 1 million older Virginians, and we expect that number to double by 2050 to almost 2 million. We really look forward to the Commonwealth being a great place to age, and these students are going to help do that, and ask that the House would give them a warm house welcome. Mr. Speaker, a request that could House Bill 465 on page 3 of the calendar go by for the day?
Without objection, House Bill 465 by for the day. The gentleman from Bedford, Ms. Byron.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise for a request.
Gentleman, you stated.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You can only imagine my shock and dismay when I was in committee the other day and discovered that a bill I promised to introduce with Delegate Poindexter for a constituent was not on the system. So, Mr. Speaker, I don't know if it got lost in the snowstorm or what happened to it, because I remember walking it up there, but it's gone. So I need unanimous consent, so I'm requesting unanimous consent so that I can fulfill my promise to my constituent.
At least she didn't say the dog ate it. The gentlewoman from Bedford, Ms. Byron, requests unanimous consent to introduce a piece of legislation long after the due date.
Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker.
The gentleman from Charlottesville.
Will the gentleman yield?
Gentlewoman yield?
I yield.
Gentlewoman yields.
I'd ask the gentlewoman, would she be so kind to explain what exactly the legislation would do?
It was actually during the committee when we were looking at neighborhood tax credits.
Oh.
And it is just some clarifying language, doesn't really make any substantial changes. Very important clarifying language.
Mr. Speaker, will the gentleman yield for another question?
Gentlewoman yield.
I yield.
I'd say the gentlewoman, I think I know what she's referring to, but I would ask the gentlewoman, is there any other legislation that's been considered by this body to date or been passed or not passed by this body to date that really has to do with what you're proposing?
No, it doesn't conflict with anything that I have seen, including yours.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Gentlewoman from Bedford, Ms. Byron, request unanimous consent. As many as favor that motion will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. That motion's agreed to. Are there further motions or resolutions under Rule 39? If not, the clerk will call the calendar.
Calendar for the Virginia House of Delegates for Thursday, January 28th. Page 1, House Bills on second reading, uncontested calendar. House Bill, second reading, uncontested. House Bill 181, a bill to amend and reenact a section of the Code of Virginia relating to the Northern Virginia Transportation Commission membership. Report for the committee on transportation.
The gentleman from Loudoun, Mr. Minshew.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, members of the House, House Bill 181 does one thing and one thing only. It allows Virginia's third most populous county, Loudoun, with over 350,000 residents, to have 2 voting members on the Northern Virginia Transportation Commission instead of the 1 it currently enjoys, thereby putting Loudoun on par with the city of Alexandria with 148,000, but still well behind Fairfax and Arlington. Mr. Speaker, this change is warranted by the fact that Loudoun has chosen to join the Washington Metropolitan Area Transit Association Compact and will have Silver Line service coming in a few years. Mr. Speaker, I would ask that the bill be engrossed and be sent forward to its third reading.
Thank you.
Turning to page 2 of the printed calendar, House Bill 184, a bill to designate the Route 301 bridge in Prince George County, the Trooper Nathan Michael W. Smith Memorial Bridge. Report for the Committee on Transportation.
Gentlewoman from Petersburg, Ms. Eric.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, House Bill 184 is legislation for Trooper Nathaniel Michael W. Smith, 27, who entered his eternal rest the morning of September the 21st, 2015, while responding to assist another trooper whom he believed to be in distress at an accident scene in Dinwiddie County. Mr. Speaker, this legislation designates Route 301 Bridge in Prince George County at Exit 45 over Interstate 95 as the Trooper Nathaniel Michael W. Smith Memorial Bridge. Mr. Speaker, I hope it would be the pleasure of the House to engross the bill and pass it on to its third reading.
Thank you.
House Bill 190, a bill to amend and reenact a section of the Code of Virginia relating to use of population estimates in connection with decisions of the Northern Virginia Transportation Authority. Report from the Committee on Transportation.
The gentleman from Fairfax, Mr. Bulova.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, House Bill 190 is very similar to a bill we passed last year for the Hampton Roads Transportation Accountability Commission. Part of the voting structure for the Northern Virginia Transportation Authority is based on population, and that population is based on the decennial census, except that it has a provision that every 5 years you can adjust that since population changes so rapidly in our area. Unfortunately, as passed, it states that the adjustment is going to be based on Weldon Cooper Center projections. The problem with that is these projections are only done in 10-year increments. What we meant to say was that these would be estimates from the Weldon Cooper Center, which are done annually. And so House Bill 190 simply clarifies this and returns us to the original meaning of the bill that was passed. Mr. Speaker, I'd move that we engross the bill and pass it on to its third reading.
House Bill 252, as well as House Bill 465 are by for the day accordingly. House Bill 559, a bill to amend and reenact section of the Code of Virginia, repeal several others relating to obsolete reporting requirements. Report for the Committee on Health, Welfare, and Institutions with amendments.
The gentleman from Carolina, Mr. Rock.
Mr. Speaker, I move the adoption of the committee amendments.
Questions on adoption of the committee amendments? As many as favor that motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The committee amendments are agreed to. The gentleman from Carolina.
Mr. Speaker, ladies and gentlemen of the House, all this bill does is remove what has become an unnecessary reporting requirement for Department of Social Services as it relates to their efforts in dealing with the faith-based and other volunteer resource communities in addressing the needs of our citizenry. The current reporting requirement has required them to compile information annually from each of our local social services departments, put it together in one report to give to the Governor and the General Assembly, and it's become rather burdensome at the local level and at the state level, and we know that they've been doing a wonderful job in developing these partnerships. It will be the pleasure of the body to engross the bill and pass it to its third reading.
Turning to page 4 of the printed calendar, House Bill 562 has been moved to the regular calendar. House Bill 629, a bill to amend the Code of Virginia relating to prescription drug disposal. Report for the Committee on Health, Welfare, and Institutions with amendments.
The gentleman from Middlesex, Mr. Hodges.
Move adoption of the committee amendments, Mr. Speaker.
Questions on adoption of the committee amendments? As many as favor that motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. Committee amendments agreed to. The gentleman from Middlesex.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, House Bill 629 will encourage more pharmacies to participate in drug take-back programs by easing liability concerns. Pharmacies that do participate in these take-back programs must comply with all current state and federal requirements. This is permissive language and in no way would require a pharmacy to act as a take-back site. I hope it will be the pleasure of the House to engross the bill and pass it to its third reading.
Turn to page 5 of the printed calendar. House Bill 648, a bill to amend and reenact a section of the Code of Virginia relating to the State Health Commissioner, State Board of Health, approved sewage systems, or nonconforming system. Report for the Committee on Health, Welfare, and Institutions.
The gentleman from Virginia Beach, Mr. Knight.
Mr. Speaker, House Bill 648 grandfathers septic tanks for use on home additions or home replacements if they were initially installed legally. And if you had a septic tank and your house burnt down, it would mean that you wouldn't have to put a new updated septic system in before you could build your house back if the one that you had originally was still working and was installed legally. Mr. Speaker, I move the House engross the bill and pass to its third reading.
House Bill 652, a bill to amend and reenact a section of the Code of Virginia relating to declaration of neurological death. Report from the Committee on Health, Welfare, and Institutions.
Gentleman from Henrico, Mr. O'Bannon.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. House Bill 652 simply updates terminology on the definition of brain death. It doesn't have anything to do with other parts of that statute, just as an update of the definition. I hope we'll engross the bill past to its third reading.
Thank you.
House Bill 674, a bill to amend and reenact a section of the Code of Virginia relating to kinship foster care, waiver of foster home approval standards. Report for the Committee on Health, Welfare, and Institutions.
The gentleman from Hanover, Mr. Peace.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, ladies and gentlemen of the House, House Bill 674 deals with the approval of foster and adoptive homes and clarifies its responsibility of local departments of social services. The code section currently places responsibility for granting certain variances with the Commissioner of Social Services. This simply clarifies that it is the responsibility of the local board. Move that the bill be engrossed and pass to its third reading.
House Bill 719, a bill to amend and reenact section of the Code of Virginia relating to Commonwealth Transportation Board, criteria used to determine the value of factors evaluated in the statewide prioritization process for project selection. Report for the Committee on Transportation.
Gentleman from Fairfax, Mr. Lemunion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, and ladies and gentlemen of the House, this is a public notice bill. As I think members are aware, we've charged the Commonwealth Transportation Board with rating and ranking transportation projects in the Commonwealth. This would require that information be made available to the public at least 30 days prior to any decision that might be made on those projects by the board. I hope it be the pleasure of the body to engross the bill and pass it on to its third reading.
House Bill 724, a bill to amend and reenact a section of the code relating to voting procedures of the Northern Virginia Transportation Commission. Report from the Committee on Transportation with a substitute.
The gentleman from Fairfax, Mr. Lemunion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move adoption of the committee substitute.
Questions on adoption of the committee substitute. As many as favor that motion will say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The committee substitute is agreed to. The gentleman from Fairfax.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, ladies and gentlemen of the House, this bill pertains to the two regional transportation entities we have in Northern Virginia. One, the Transportation Authority, operates by a two-thirds voting majority when it makes a decision. The other, the Commission, operates on 50% plus one. This would conform the 50% plus one, or the Commission's practice, to that of the authority, so that both would operate on a two-thirds voting majority to take action on any matter. I hope it be the pleasure of the body to engross the bill and pass it on to its third reading.
House Bill 725, a bill to amend and reenact section of the Code of Virginia relating to members of the Northern Virginia Transportation Commission. Report from the Committee on Transportation with an amendment.
The gentleman from Fairfax, Mr. Lemunion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move adoption of the committee amendment.
Questions on adoption of the committee amendment. As many as favor that motion will say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The committee amendment is agreed to. The gentleman from Fairfax.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, ladies and gentlemen of the House, it turns out that the transportation commissions in Virginia that are comprised by local governments are generally allowed to have non-elected officials serve on the commission. The exception is the Northern Virginia Transportation Commission. This bill would allow non-elected officials to serve on the commission and also by extension to serve on the Washington Metropolitan Area Transit Authority. I hope it be the pleasure of the body to engross the bill and pass it on to its third reading.
House Bill 727, a bill to amend and reenact a section of the Code of Virginia relating to the Northern Virginia Transportation Authority, decisions to create or improve transportation facility, public notice. Report from the Committee on Transportation with an amendment.
Gentleman from Fairfax, Mr. Lemunion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move adoption of the committee amendment.
Questions on adoption of the committee amendment. As many as favor that motion will say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The amendment is agreed to. The gentleman from Fairfax.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, ladies and gentlemen of the House, this is also a public notice bill. It pertains to the Northern Virginia Transportation Authority, and it requires a 15-day prior notice related to the authority taking action on any transportation project it might seek to fund. I hope it be the pleasure of the body to engross the bill and pass it on to its third reading.
Turning to page 8 of the printed calendar, House Bill 731, a bill to amend and reenact a section of the Code of Virginia relating to compensation for Northern Virginia Transportation Commission members who serve on the Washington Metropolitan Area Transit Authority. Report from the Committee on Transportation with a substitute.
Gentleman from Fairfax, Mr. Lemunyan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move adoption of the committee substitute.
Questions on adoption of the committee substitute. As many as favor that motion will say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The substitute is agreed to. The gentleman from Fairfax.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, ladies and gentlemen of the House, many of us who serve on boards and commissions are compensated for that activity throughout the year. Private citizens who serve on some of those boards and commissions are also able to be compensated. This would allow a private citizen who serves on behalf of the Commonwealth on the Washington Metropolitan Area Transit Authority to also be compensated in the same way. We have one of those people right now. That person is an appointee of the governor. Should one of the other bills we just considered pass, it might apply to others in the future. I hope it be the pleasure of the body to engross the bill and pass it on to its third reading.
House Bill 816, a bill to amend and reenact several sections of the Code of Virginia, repeal a couple of others relating to Public Guardian and Conservator Advisory Board. Report from the Committee on Health, Welfare, and Institutions.
The gentleman from Hanover, Mr. Peace.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, ladies and gentlemen of the House, House Bill 816 moves the Public Guardian and Conservator Advisory Board into a new title and removes the Virginia Guardianship Association, which has been dissolved. Mr. Speaker, I move that the bill be engrossed and pass its third reading.
And, Mr. Speaker, House Bill 1026, a bill to amend and reenact several sections of the Code of Virginia relating to the Department of Social Services electronic notices. Report from the Committee on Health, Welfare, and Institutions.
The gentleman from Fairfax, Mr. Sickles.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This little bill allows the Department of Social Security in their enforcement of child support to communicate with the parties electronically if the parties agree to communicate that way. It will be a savings to the Commonwealth, and I trust it'll be the will of the body to engross the bill and pass it on to its third reading.
Shall the bills be engrossed and pass the third reading? As many as favor that motion will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The bills are engrossed and passed to the third reading.
Continuing with today's calendar, House bills on second reading regular calendar. House Bill second reading regular calendar. House Bill 825 has been taken by for the day. However, on page 4 of the printed calendar, House Bill 562 has been moved to the second regular. House Bill 562, a bill to amend and reenact several sections of the code relating to licensure of massage therapists. Report from the Committee on Health, Welfare, and Institutions with amendments.
The gentleman from Chesterfield, Ms. Robbins.
Mr. Speaker, I move adoption of the committee amendments.
The questions on adoption of the committee amendments, as many as favor that motion will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The committee amendments are agreed to. The gentlewoman from Chesterfield.
House Bill 562 requires that massage therapists be licensed rather than certified to practice in the Commonwealth. This is a bill very similar to one we passed out of this body a couple years ago. And I move that House Bill 562 be engrossed and passed on to its third reading.
Shall the bill be engrossed and passed to its third reading? As many as favor that motion will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The bill is engrossed and passed to its third reading.
Mr. Speaker, that completes the items on the calendar, save for House Joint Resolution 210, which is awaiting Senate consideration regarding Supreme Court justices, a special and continuing order.
We'll be at ease for a moment. House will come to order. The gentleman from Colonial Heights, Mr. Cox. Gentleman from Colonial Heights, Mr. Cox, moves that the House stand in recess until 2 o'clock. As many as favor that motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. That motion's agreed to. House stands in recess until 2 p.m. The House will come to order. Members, please take their seats. Clerk has a communication or announcement or
No communications from the Senate regarding House Joint Resolution 210. The Speaker, therefore, is directed to continue on with the rest of today's business in committee. Accordingly, the Commerce and Labor Committee will meet 1/2 hour after adjournment, meet immediately upon adjournment of the House over in House Room D of the General Assembly Building. Then the Commerce and Labor Subcommittee number 2 will meet immediately upon adjournment of the full committee, also in House Room D. House Committee on General Laws will meet 1/2 hour after adjournment of the House here in House Room C at approximately 2:30. Subsequently, General Laws Subcommittee number 4 will meet immediately upon adjournment of the full committee, also in House Room C. And then Subcommittee number 2 of General Laws will meet 2 hours after adjournment of the full committee, or whenever Subcommittee number 4 is finished, presumably, all in House Room C. Agriculture Chesapeake and Natural Resources Chesapeake Subcommittee will meet at 4 o'clock in House Room 1 here in the Capitol. That's a change in time and in location for ACNR Chesapeake Subcommittee, 4 o'clock downstairs in House Room 1. Appropriations, Compensation, and Retirement Subcommittee will meet at 4 o'clock over in the 9th floor Appropriations Room. Militia, Police, and Public Safety Subcommittee number 1 will meet at 4 o'clock. They'll be a floor below in the 8th floor West Conference Room. Privileges and Elections Subcommittee will meet at 4 o'clock in the 5th floor West Conference Room. That's in change in time for P&E Campaigns Subcommittee, 4 o'clock, 5 West. Then at 5 o'clock, the Virginia Legislative Black Caucus will be meeting in the 6th floor Leadership Conference Room, Senate Leadership Conference Room over in the GAB. And at 6:30 this evening, the Freshman Caucus will be meeting in 8 West. Freshman Caucus, 6:30 in 8 West. Looking ahead to tomorrow morning, Friday, January 29th, the Transportation Subcommittee number 1 will be meeting at 7 a.m. in the 5th floor East Conference Room. That is a new committee meeting time, and look for them. The Finance Committee, Subcommittee number 3, will meet at 7:30 in the 4th floor West Conference Room tomorrow morning in the GAB. Ben Franklin Liberty Caucus will meet at 8 o'clock in the 5th floor West Conference Room. The New American Caucus meeting has been canceled for tomorrow. The Capital Region Caucus will meet, however, at 8 o'clock tomorrow in the 8th floor West Conference Room. Also looking at tomorrow morning's legislative schedule, county, cities, and towns. That committee will meet at 8 o'clock in House Room D. CC&T at 8 a.m. Militia, Police, and Public Safety also will meet at 8 o'clock. 8 o'clock in House Room C. That's a change in time. The Tourism Caucus will meet at 9 in the 5th floor West Conference Room. And then the Privileges and Elections Committee will meet at 9:30. 9:30 in the 9th floor Appropriations Room. The Democratic Caucus will meet at 10:30 tomorrow in House Room 2. The Republican Caucus will meet at 10:30 a.m. in House Room 1. Mr. Speaker, I'd also remind the body, the members, policy is on vote statements that they are due to the front desk by noon of the next day. So if you have, for example, today missed a vote, want to change a vote, you have until 11:59 prior to a gavel coming in to come up and change that. You have up to 3 days if you have leave given by the body. Otherwise, Mr. Speaker, those are the announcements I have.
The gentleman from Botetourt, Mr. Head.
Mr. Speaker, can we return to morning hour for a motion?
We're here.
Please. I'd like to move that House Bill 465 be re-referred to the Committee on Health, Welfare, and Institutions.
What page?
It's on page 3 of the calendar today. We took it by for today.
Yeah. It's 5 for the day. Why don't we do it tomorrow? Is that okay?
That'll be fine. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The gentleman from Virginia Beach, Mr. Knight.
I was asking Mr. Clerk, did he announce rules studies today, 4:30, Speaker's Conference Room, 6th floor?
Speaker, the chairman is correct. I did not, and it's not listed on that, and we will rectify that forthwith. The House Committee, Subcommittee on Studies of the House Rules Committee will meet at 4:30 over in the GAB on the in the 6th floor Speaker's Conference Room. My apologies.
The gentleman from Colonial Heights, Mr. Cox.
Mr. Speaker, I move when the House adjourn today to adjourn to reconvene tomorrow at 11 a.m.
The gentleman from Colonial Heights, Mr. Cox, moves that when the House adjourn today, adjourn to reconvene tomorrow at 11 a.m. As many as favor that motion will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. That motion is agreed to. The gentleman from Colonial Heights, Mr. Cox.
Mr. Speaker, I move the House to now adjourn.
Gentleman from Colonial Heights, Mr. Cox, moves the House to now adjourn. As many as favor that motion will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. That motion is agreed to. The House stands adjourned until 11 a.m. tomorrow.